So Sam, I think you took part recently in Alpha, and yeah, we'd love to hear more about that, and thank you for being willing to share. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about your life prior to going to Alpha, just to kind of give us an idea.
Hello. Yes, so before Alpha, if you'd spoken to me 2 years ago, I would have told you very confidently that I was an atheist. I would have had very strong views about, well, I wouldn't have known the difference between God, religion, the organisation of the church. I would have lumped the whole lot together and had strong views, and it very much it was not part of my life. I hadn't grown up going to church. My family didn't go to church. I think there's I've got one family member, but other than that, it had never been a part of my life, and I hadn't read the Bible. It was not part of my life at all.
Okay, wow.
So until 2 years ago, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, and so I guess just quickly, maybe the big question: what drew you to Alpha? Or kind of, I guess, what changed?
I mean, I was thinking about it as we were listening to that in terms of God pursuing you, or that sense he's running after you. I mean, I would say, I do get emotional when I talk about it, but bear with me, it will pass. The last 2 years has just been a fundamental transformation that started with probably the lowest point, I would say, of my life in terms of things that I had stood on, fell away. My marriage ended, which I didn't expect. I'd taken on the biggest job I'd ever had. Some close people to me had died, moved away, and in one of those points of, I think I would call it a dark night of the soul, one of those ones where you just think, I don't know what to do. The things I've stood on, the things that gave me stability, falling away, I don't know what to do. And really was one of those raw, yearning nights. And in the middle of it, I couldn't have told you if I was awake or asleep, but an utter peace came into the room. It felt like there was a light, a warmth, and a peace. And I thought at that point, don't move, because whatever that is, I don't want it to go. Everything, I felt utterly different after that. And I would say for several months, I couldn't have explained it to you. I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was something. And I knew that something was changing. And then lockdown happened. And I think because of lockdown, everything went a lot quieter. My life became quiet. And I think that created space for me to hear him. And I could feel an interest. There were what I thought was an utter confusing conversation with a friend of mine led to me reading a book by Richard Rohr. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know what the Holy Trinity was at that point. I remember reading it and thinking, I don't know what this is. And a real hunger for books. I read book after book after book. And then somebody said to me, a friend of mine that lives in Ireland, one of my best friends that had moved away, said to me, I could send you a link to my church over here online. You could watch it. And I watched it. And in that, I'd watched it a couple of weeks, and they did an advert for Alpha. I'd never heard of it. And then she said to me, why don't you do Alpha? If you do it, I'll do it with you. And then my aunt sent me a message out the blue and said, have you ever heard of Alpha? Do you want to do it? So it came from all of these places, and I thought, okay. I mean, I was terrified, but I thought, I'll do it.
And once you signed up to Alpha, what was your experience of actually going through it?
So obviously in lockdown, it was very different, as in I did a Zoom Alpha, an online Alpha, to a church in Northern Ireland. So that shows just what was possible. I was terrified. I thought I was going to offend people. I didn't know the language. What if I say something that people think, I wouldn't realize was offensive? I remember turning up to the first one and thinking, you can leave if you need to. All you need to do is end the Zoom call. Nobody will know. And I do think I wouldn't have gone I wouldn't have gone, I don't think, if it was in person. But the fact that it was on Zoom meant I did. And actually, as the weeks went on, I felt I could ask what to me were all the stupid questions, but nobody felt they were. I remember saying one week, why do you all say in Jesus' name when you pray? I had no idea why people said that. why things that people just took for granted. And I would say, what is that? Why do you do that? And just hearing people pray, I'd never heard people pray. And for me, it became a place where I could ask questions. I could start to look at the Bible. I could start to just find something else, because most of the journey of the last 2 years has been through lockdown. It's been me, the Bible, and Jesus, quite frankly, just reading it. And actually, he used that to show me something else. Somebody said to me once, sometimes he uses others with skin to speak to us. And I really believe that. He used the people in that to show me things and teach me things that I couldn't have learned anywhere else.
Amazing. And what has been the impact on your life since? If you can sum it up, I guess.
Huge. It is huge. I was gutted when it finished. I thought, what do I do now? Where do I go? How do I take this forward from here? But then they asked me if I would go back and help run a group in the next one, which I did, which I learned as much from that as I did the first one, because I listened to it from a different place. And I really believe it has been a fundamental part of me. I really think I would describe it as a route home, a change in me in terms of what I had built my life on, and that bit where we can all think that necessary dying, the stuff we have to let go of, and brought me to something else. So I think for anybody that thinks, any of my friends would have told you, there's no point asking Sam. If you'd said, well, why don't you ask Sam to do Alpha? They would have said, no, there's no point. She'll never do that. But I think what none of us ever know is what God is already doing in people. He asks us to do a tiny bit, which is just to say, maybe you could do Alpha. And if those people hadn't have done that, I wouldn't have done it. But it's that tiny bit for us. And when I rang, and when I was helped out on the last group, the bit in the Bible that came to mind was in, and apologies to people that know the Bible better than I do, the bit in where Simon is in the boat with Jesus. It's in Luke, and they talk about casting your nets down. And he says, but we put them down all night and we didn't catch anything. And any of us can think, I've asked them before and they said no, or I know they wouldn't do it, or I wouldn't, they'll never do it. But he just said, okay, put them down. And they put their nets down. So what I would say to anybody, put your nets down and leave the rest to him. Amazing.